a boy suddenly stumbled upon a chilling scene. The scarecrow next to him seemed to have moved. Thinking his eyes were playing tricks on him, he walked over to check, only to discover that the scarecrow's feet had turned into terrifying claws. As the boy stood there in shock, the scarecrow's claws twitched again, sending him running in terror. The next moment, the scarecrow transformed into a horrifying monster, leaping into the air and swooping down towards the boy. Screaming for help, the boy sprinted as fast as he could, but the monster caught up to him and grabbed him. The boy's older brother, who was fixing a car nearby, heard his little brother's cries and quickly got up to investigate. Their father also rushed out of the house with a shotgun. Noticing movement in the cornfield not far away, they instantly realized the boy might be in danger. However, by the time they charged into the cornfield, the monster had already snatched the boy and fled. The monster moved incredibly fast, darting through the cornfield, leaving the father and son unable to keep up. They could only watch helplessly as the monster spread its wings, soared into the sky, and disappeared from view, all while the boy's heart-wrenching pleas for help echoed in their ears. The father's face was filled with horror and worry, and he couldn't eat or sleep once he returned home, constantly fearing for his son's safety. Unwilling to sit idly by, the father was determined to make the monster pay dearly. The father and son immediately used everything they could find at home, and after 2 full days of hard work, they successfully converted their car into a giant crossbow launcher and crafted several massive swords. Once everything was ready, the enraged father and son drove their modified vehicle and began searching for any traces of the monster. Late into the night, they finally made a discovery. A car had crashed into a large tree on the side of the road. It was clear that this was no ordinary accident, as the roof had been ripped open by an immense force, and the driver was nowhere to be found, undoubtedly the work of the monster. Just as Pete was about to approach for a closer look, his eldest son suddenly heard someone calling for help over the walkie-talkie. The person's tone was laced with fear, suggesting they were in serious trouble. It turned out that the distress call was coming from a group of students trapped in a school bus. Earlier that day, these students had just finished participating in a basketball game under the guidance of their teacher. They were cheerfully making their way back to school, celebrating their victory, unaware of the looming danger. Suddenly, a loud bang rang out, and the bus started shaking violently. The driver promptly pulled over to the side of the road and hurried out to assess the situation. It turned out that one of the rear right tires had been completely destroyed by a strangely shaped dart. When the driver removed the dart from the tire, he discovered that it was made from some kind of bone. Even more terrifying was the fact that what appeared to be a human tooth was embedded in the dart. Frightened, the driver immediately dropped it on the ground. They tried to call for help but realized they were in a remote area with no cell signal. With nightfall approaching, the driver had no choice but to slowly drive the school bus forward. However, not long after they set off, another tire was punctured by a dart. This dart made the teacher and driver even more uneasy because embedded in it was a human belly button. 2 consecutive incidents of being hit by the same type of dart were clearly no accident. For safety reasons, the driver decided to have the students return to the bus first. However, the teacher, who was placing flares on the ground to prevent rear-end collisions, was suddenly snatched up by a black shadow descending from the sky. Hearing the commotion, the others immediately turned to look and found that the teacher had vanished. Sensing the danger, the driver quickly ushered the students into the school bus and locked the doors before setting out alone to search for the missing teacher.